Could it really happen? Two of Britpop's most legendary bands, Oasis and Blur, teaming up for an epic tour? For years, fans of these iconic groups have debated, dreamed, and even joked about the possibility. But now, with both bands making headlines for their long-awaited reunions, the idea doesn't seem so far-fetched. The rivalry between Oasis and Blur defined the Britpop era. With Oasis hailing from Manchester and Blur representing the south of England, their feud was as much about cultural identity as it was about music. Both bands dominated the charts, and their infamous chart battle in 1995 cemented their place in rock history. Fast forward to 2024, and both bands are making waves once again. Blur, led by Damon Albarn and Alex James, recently wrapped up their own reunion tour with a triumphant set of shows at Coachella. Fans were thrilled to see the group back on stage, but Albarn hinted during their final performance that this might be Blur's swan song. Then, just a few months later, Oasis made the announcement fans had been waiting for. Noel and Liam Gallagher are putting their differences aside for a massive world tour. Last year, a fan on social media asked Liam Gallagher about Blur. He replied, "I love Blur, and at some point we have to do Old Dears tours." Blur bassist Alex James couldn't help but comment on Oasis's return. In a recent interview, James praised the Gallagher brothers for their good manners, joking that it was nice of them to wait until Blur had wrapped up their tour before announcing their reunion. James was even complimentary of Liam Gallagher, calling him an incredible singer and admitting that the brothers have an undeniable charisma. It's rare to hear such kind words exchanged between members of these two bands, and it's got fans wondering, could a joint Oasis and Blur tour actually happen? Let's imagine it for a moment. Oasis and Blur sharing the same stage, performing back-to-back sets, and maybe even collaborating on a song or two. It's the kind of event that would sell out stadiums around the globe and become a defining moment in music history.
It was ridiculous, really. But that whole part of the Britpop thing was so unnecessary.
Because,
well, this was going to be our single from the record, and then some people come down from Creation and said, Blur are putting a single out on that day too. And I'm like, all right. So we decided to put it back a week, and then they called up and said, well, they've put theirs back a week now. And we were like, oh. And I think there was about a week where we were wholly uninterested in it. We were like, whatever, we're not bothered. And then the whole thing started to catch fire. Mm-hmm. And then we got interested in it pretty quick. And of course, if anybody starts a fight with me, well, it's
The battle, two of Britain's most popular pop groups have begun the biggest chart war in 30 years. The Manchester band Oasis and their arch rivals Blur released new singles today, each hoping to reach the #1 spot next week. The music industry hasn't seen anything like it since the Beatles fought it out with the Rolling Stones in the 60s.
But it was the whole shame about the thing is the two songs are that's it. You know, if it was like cigarettes and alcohol and girls and boys, fair enough. Country House is roll with it has never been played by anybody since the band split up, so that tells its own story.